Subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon, to never miss a video from us. Hi everyone, welcome to Test Prep Training. In this video you will learn about some commonly asked questions in implementing an Azure data solution, DP-200. So let's get started. You develop data engineering solutions for a company. The company has on-premises Microsoft SQL Server databases at multiple locations. The company must integrate data with Microsoft Power BI and Microsoft Azure Logic Apps. The solution must avoid single points of failure during connection and transfer to the cloud. The solution must also minimize latency. You need to secure the transfer of data between on-premises databases and Microsoft Azure. What should you do? Your options are: A. Install a standalone on-premises Azure Data Gateway at each location. B. Install an on-premises Data Gateway in personal mode at each location. C. Install an Azure on-premises Data Gateway at the primary location. D. Install an Azure on-premises Data Gateway as a cluster at each location. The correct answer is option D. Company has a SaaS solution that uses Azure SQL database with elastic pools. The solution contains a dedicated database for each customer organization. Customer organizations have peak usage at different periods during the year. You need to implement the Azure SQL database elastic pool to minimize cost. Which option or options should you configure? Your options are: A. Number of transactions only. B. EDTUs per database only. C. Number of databases only. D. CPU usage only. E. EDTUs and max data size. The correct answer is option E. Data engineering team manages Azure HD Insight clusters. The team spends a large amount of time creating and destroying clusters daily because most of the data pipeline process runs in minutes. You need to implement a solution that deploys multiple HD Insight clusters with minimal effort. What should you implement? Your options are: A. Azure Databricks. B. Azure Traffic Manager. C. Azure Resource Manager Templates. D. Ambari Web User Interface. The correct answer is option C. You are the data engineer for your company. An application uses a NoSQL database to store data. The database uses the key value and wide column NoSQL database type. Developers need to access data in the database using an API. You need to determine which API to use for the database model and type. Which two APIs should you use? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. Your options are: A. Table API. B. MongoDB API. C. Gremlin API. D. SQL API. E. Cassandra API. The correct answers are option B and E. A company is designing a hybrid solution to synchronize data and on-premises Microsoft SQL Server database to Azure SQL database. You must perform an assessment of databases to determine whether data will move without compatibility issues. You need to perform the assessment. Which tool should you use? Your options are: A. SQL Server Migration Assistant. B. Microsoft Assessment and Planning Toolkit. C. SQL Vulnerability Assessment. D. Azure SQL Data Sync. E. Data Migration Assistant. The correct answer is option E. Company has a SaaS solution that uses Azure SQL database with elastic pools. The solution will have a dedicated database for each customer organization. Customer organizations have peak usage at different periods during the year. Which two factors affect your costs when sizing the Azure SQL database elastic pools? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. Your options are: A. Maximum data size. B. Number of databases. C. disk consumption. D. Number of read operations. E. Number of transactions. The correct answers are option A and C. A company runs Microsoft SQL Server in an on-premises virtual machine. You must migrate the database to Azure SQL database. You synchronize users from Active Directory to Azure Active Directory. You need to configure Azure SQL database to use an Azure AD user as administrator. What should you configure? Your options are: A. For each Azure SQL database, set the access control to administrator. B. For each Azure SQL database server, set the Active Directory to administrator. C. For each Azure SQL database, set the Active Directory administrator role. D. For each Azure SQL database server, set the access control to administrator. The correct answer is option C. You have an Azure SQL database named DB1 that contains a table named Table1. Table1 has a field named Customer ID that is varchar 22. You need to implement masking for the Customer ID field to meet the following requirements. The first two prefix characters must be exposed. The last four suffix characters must be exposed. All other characters must be masked. Solution: you implement data masking and use a random number function mask. Does this meet the goal? Your options are: A. Yes. B. No. The correct answer is option B. And, here's the explanation of the answer. Develop a data ingestion process that will import data to an enterprise data warehouse in Azure Synapse Analytics. The data to be ingested resides in Parquet files, stored in an Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage account. You need to load the data from the Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage account into the data warehouse. Solution: 1. Create an external data source pointing to the Azure storage account. 2. Create a workload group using the Azure storage account name as the pool name. 3. Load the data using the insert select statement. Does the solution meet the goal? Your options are: A. Yes. B. No. The correct answer is option B. And, here's the explanation of the answer. You have an Azure Stream Analytics query. The query returns a result set that contains 10,000 distinct values for a column named Cluster ID. You monitor the Stream Analytics job and discover high latency. You need to reduce the latency. Which two actions should you perform? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note: each correct selection is worth 1 point. Your options are: A. Add a pass-through query. B. Add a temporal analytic function. C. Scale out the query by using partition by. D. Convert the query to a reference query. E. Increase the number of streaming units. The correct answers are option C and E. For more such videos, subscribe to our channel.